I'm going to go through the main features of the Digi-Gurdy. If we start at this end, there's a correct sized knob on the crank. It contains proper roller bearings. The handle, it's simple and it's made of metal. There's a proper bearing system here and internally, and the shaft is 8mm thick, and it's a precision ground steel rod, so it's perfectly straight. There's a knob here. This knob controls the point at which the buzz starts to come in. So as you're cranking, if you crank above a certain speed defined by this knob, set by this knob, the buzz will sound. As the buzz sounds, the knob will actually flash. It's like a blue glow to it, so you can use that to set the point at which the buzz comes in, because different people have different cranking speeds. Under here is a drum brake system. As you crank, it simulates the friction of the strings rubbing on the wheel, and the way that's done, it's rather like the drum brake of a car. I've got one partly built here. You see there's a friction pad here. There's a ring of friction material, and it's tensioned by this tuning peg and thread and spring. It's tensioned down onto a rotating drum, just like the drum brake on a car. So by setting the force with this tuning knob, you can set the friction or resistance to turning, so that simulates that. There's a socket. This is a normal MIDI socket, 5-pin, using the standard MIDI protocol. You could connect a cable to that running to a synthesizer or something. The reason I use it is I use one of these WIDI masters with the device. That's a MIDI wireless transmitter, Bluetooth transmitter. So you compare this with something like an iPhone or an iPad wirelessly, should you wish to, optionally. Then you have a screen. It's got a cover on it, and it's easy to read even in reasonably bright sunlight. You have a button. What's this button for? Basically, if you're cranking and actually you don't want to crank because you just want to practice playing a tune and learning the tune, if you tap the button, it will turn on a constant cranking speed as if you were cranking. So it'll just play all the strings, constant rate, and you can practice playing the tune. Press it again, whoops, and it will stop. Next thing, key box. The key box has a lid which will come varnished. It's held on by two magnets here and here, so it's not a tight fit. You'll hear it'll actually snap down into place. This avoids using these little tiny hinges and little tiny screws, which always in time crack and break free of the wood if you're not very careful with them. So magnets, I think, are a better way to do that. Obviously you have keys. The keys are laid out in the correct manner. They're actually the same layout as in a NerdyGurdy, but basically they're in a correct layout for the hurdy-gurdy, correct spacings. I've rounded off the top keys. This edge on the top has been chamfered slightly just to make them more comfortable under your fingers. What's inside here? Inside, I'll show you on this part built one, there's a circuit board, if you can see there. Oops, hang on, there we are. This circuit board contains a computer, which is down in here, which is about as powerful as one on a mobile phone. It's not very large, but it's pretty powerful. And you can see that there's rows of these little micro switches with rollers on the end of them. You can hear them clicking. So the tangents on the keys, instead of pressing a string, they press the relevant micro switches. So you can see there in this one, the key box is full of different sized tangents which press on the switches. You can hear them clicking. You can actually play pretty fast. These are sprung, so they'll spring the key back. So you can see now the keys are facing upwards and they still return to the start position. And these are the tangents, the black things are the tangents. These are the two magnets that hold the lid on. So we're now moving up to this end. What's on this end? Let's turn it around for you. You've got a USB socket. It's not the normal USB socket, it's the chunkier one that you find on things like printers. And into that you can plug a cable with a 90-degree bend on the end there, like that. And the cable runs away from you, bearing in mind you'll be playing it this way, to a connected device such as an iPad. Finally, you've got this. What's this? This, if you remove the cover, hides a mobile phone power bank, and it's actually one of these. And it'll be supplied to you empty. And what you need to do, if you wish to use this, I'll explain why later, you can put a lithium-ion 18650 battery into there, the sort that are flat on both ends, because there's two types. Don't ask how I know that. You put the cap on, a bit fiddly, there we are. That whole thing inserts into the end of the Digi-Gurdy here, and then this cap, which is held in with normal screws, holds it in. The small port is for charging up the battery. The larger USB port is if you want to draw power from it. Now, later on in the description I show how the Digi-Gurdy is connected to an iPad, and actually it draws its power from the iPad. But if you didn't want to use a cable, what you would do is you would buy one of these and plug it in here. Remember, it's a Bluetooth MIDI transmitter to a connected device such as an iPad. But then you'd have to power it, wouldn't you? Because now you don't have a cable connecting it to the iPad. So the way you power it is with the magic lead, and the magic lead goes in there, and then the other end of it goes into the power bank, which turns it on. You might just see it glowing blue there, but you'll see that the screen is now working. Let's bring it into focus there. And the various menus have come up. So if I was in wireless mode, which is the way I usually use it actually, that's how I would run it. And to turn the power off, you literally just remove the magic lead. Just put the lid back on there. On the underside, I've removed them. There are 3 inspection hatches held in with 4 screws. You remove the hatches, you can reach everything inside. So it's kind of user serviceable if anything does break or wear out. All the leads, the wires plug in with plugs into the printed circuit board. This is the optical chopper wheel, which records how fast the crank's being turned. There's the screen, there's the button. So that's it. The one thing I should say is, if the brake pad were eventually to wear out, that's this curved thing here. Where are we? There. This has a lining on it like the brake pad in a car. It could conceivably wear out. I can supply you with a new one. It's held in literally with 1 bolt. Bearing in mind that is intended to stop the weight of a human riding an electric scooter, I'm using it in a much weakened state. All it's doing is providing a tiny bit of friction to turning the crank. So I would anticipate that this would last for absolutely ages in real life. But if it did need replacing, it's not expensive and it's actually reasonably easy to do, which is why we have the inspection hatches on the underside. One quirk of this is you can actually, it only glows this way. If you try and turn it, if you're one of these people that plays like this, forward back, this doesn't really suit you. It's clockwise only. If you try and turn it back, the brake tends to lock. It's harder to turn it backwards than it is to turn it forwards. So just bear that in mind. So how does it work? Well, inside there is a computer, and it's reading the speed of the crank, and it's reading which buttons are being pressed, it's driving the screen, and it's outputting MIDI data. And now it's outputting the MIDI data in two ways. It's sending it to a conventional, for MIDI out socket here, but it's also sending the data out to the USB here. That's called USB MIDI. So really, this is an unusual, very unusual MIDI keyboard. So to play some music, we need to attach it to something that has what's called sound fonts in it. These are the sound files. So we take this lead, okay, you'll notice it's got a 90-degree bend, that's deliberate. We plug it in here, there. See how it neatly goes off this way. So if your iPad, for example, is on a table, the lead is going the correct direction. On the end of the lead, you have just a normal male USB plug. Now then you use an adapter. So if you're using an iPad, which I recommend, but you don't have to, you could use an iPhone, an Android phone, or a PC if you're into PC synthesizer software. You use the correct adapter. So for me, using an iPad, I'm using the iPad camera adapter, Apple camera adapter, which is USB this side, and then the relevant plug for your model of, they keep changing, iPad. So if we take an iPad, I'll go off camera and just type in the security code, and I'm going to open BS16i, which is an app which is about $8 I think on the App Store. Plug in my iPad there. You can see you get multiple tracks. There are 6 channels. 2 are the melody strings, then you have the trumpet, the drone, then you also have the buzz sound when you're cranking. You can choose the actual sound of the buzz you want. Also key clicks. NerdyGurdys have a characteristic clickety-clack sound from the keys. I can actually synthesize those. If you don't like that, that's fine. You turn the volume down. There's a volume slider for each channel, which is very helpful. I'll just move my camera a little here. There we go. Right, the other thing I find useful is it's quite cool to plug in one of these speakers. There's all kinds of different variations. They're just rechargeable, USB rechargeable speakers. So I plug that into here, or you could use your piece amp system, or you could use one of those Makita building site radios, or anything you want really. I'll just turn this, is just a little cheap one. Turn that on. Okay. Now you'll notice the screen is lit up with some menus, and I'll just go through them quickly, but I'll do a separate video on this. It's booting up. It's detected the cranks working. That's good. Right, load a preset. Load save slot. New tuning setup. Basically, I won't go through the new tunings, but you can set any tuning you want, including some that don't really exist for real hurdy-gurdys. So we'll load, I'm a beginner, so we'll load a preset. Now if we imagine that key is key 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then I can navigate the menu using the keys. So it says load preset, press key 1. Right, it's giving me some options. Let's have option 2, GC with C drones. Okay, so I'm going to press key 2. Right, it's telling me now my high melody is G4, my low melody is G3, my drone is G2, my trumpet is C4. I can modify those with these keys, these little buttons. See, it says transpose. You can actually later on in the menus go up or down semitones, and you can also put a capo on or off using this button. These 2 buttons are spare for future software developments. So anyway, let's have the basic tuning. So A is accept, X is go back. That's the A button for accepting things in the menu. That's the X button for cancelling things in a menu or going back. So we'll accept that tuning. So I'm going to press that. There we are. Now crank on, ready to go. What happens if I turn the crank? Let's put this back on the tripod. Cranking. What happens if I crank? G4. See, it tells me G4. It even shows it. Look there, shows the notes for me. I'll just show you that if I can. See? Right. What are the other knobs for? This knob sets when the buzz comes in. So let's try that. Slow cranking. See the buzz? Now if I want the buzz to come in at a slower crank speed, I can adjust it with this. I've got this connected to an iPad and there are a number of buzz sounds that you can select. So I've selected one here. I'll just show you how that works. And you see you can change the sensitivity here. So go that way. It's super sensitive, too sensitive. And this flashes, you see. Let's choose a different one. How about that one there? There we go. It's a bit quieter. Of course, the other thing you can do is, because it's a MIDI keyboard in effect, you could attach a different sound to this altogether. So we could have a drum, for example, or a hi-hat. Just for fun. If you're too lazy to crank and you just want to practice tunes with your left hand, you can turn on auto cranking. There you are. Right, now you can play again. Get the general idea there. Okay. Also, I can do clever things with this. I can put a bit of delay in. Gives you a bit of an echo. If you listen to this now. Hear that? Just sounds like you're playing in a massive concert hall. Okay. What else? Right, wireless. Now, this doesn't come with the NerdyGurdy in its basic form, but if you don't want to use this lead, you'll notice the NerdyGurdy is being powered from the iPad. I'm not using any internal power. But let's say we wanted to go wireless. Could we do that? Yes, we could. If I disconnect the iPad, it's lit up, we've got power. And what I'm going to do is plug in one of these. Now again, you have to buy that yourself, but this is a Bluetooth MIDI transmitter, you see. And it uses the old school MIDI sockets designed for synthesizers things. If you remember, that was the MIDI out. You see it's flashing on and off blue. So this is not now connected to my iPad in any way. See, we're completely hands-free now. So how do I connect the iPad? Well, if I go to MIDI settings, it's got Bluetooth MIDI devices. WIDI master, this is called a WIDI master, not connected. Oh, connected. Right. So hopefully now, so we're completely mobile now. We'll just go through the setup, load a preset. There we are. Set crank on. Get the general idea there.